The Dearborn Independent, August 27, 1921, number 44. Mr. Ford's page. Any system that tends to reduce the American people to a lot of mendicants looking for favors is a harmful system, whether it comes in the guise of shop welfare, charity, humanitarianism, or any other. Charity of any kind breeds dislike. Certainly the receivers of charity are ungrateful, and it is a hopeful sign. Professionalized humanitarianism, which might just as well be called veterinarianism, is demoralizing both to him who gives and him who takes. The only system of help that justifies itself is the system that aims at rendering help unnecessary. The best hospital is the one that discharges its patients cured. Same with welfare systems and all the rest. Others are just added items of non-productive activity. The world doesn't owe anybody a living, but everybody owes it to the world that he get a living, and in getting it, leave a due margin of service for the others. Nothing is more productive of a sour spirit than the mistaken belief that we are here to be waited on, and nothing is more productive of breadth and prosperity of life than the belief that we are here to do something beyond that which necessity compels us to do for ourselves. It is hard to get such an idea clearly accepted today because there are so many words that have lost their meaning through overuse. It is next to impossible to talk about service in these days without having the very word lose itself in a tangle of preconceived ideas which were born in the wishy-washy period of romantic idealism out of which we are happily passing. It is hard for another reason, namely that this whole period of sentimental idealism to which we have just referred had the effect of giving a namby-pamby surlicing to any number of people. The idea went abroad that service was something that we should expect to be done for us. Untold numbers of people became the recipients of the well-meant but overdone social service of others. Whole swatches of the population were coddled into the habit of expecting something, same as children do. There grew up a regular profession of doing things for people, which gave an outlet for a laudable desire for service, but which contributed nothing whatever to the self-reliance of the people, nor to the correction of the conditions out of which the supposed need for such service grew. Worse than this encouragement of childish expectancy, instead of training for self-reliance and self-sufficiency, was the creation of a feeling of resentment which nearly always overtakes the objects of charity. People often complain of the ingratitude of those whom they help. Nothing is more natural. In the first place, precious little of our so-called charity is even real charity, offered out of a heart full of interest and sympathy. In the second place, no person ever relishes being in a position where he is forced to take favors from anyone. This situation creates a strained relation. The recipient of another's bounty feels that he has been belittled in the taking of it, and it is just a question whether the giver should not also feel that he has been belittled in the giving of it. Service is objected to by no one, appreciated by all, but who would designate charity as service? Charity never led to a settled state of affairs. The charitable system that does not aim to make itself unnecessary is not performing service. It is simply making a job for itself and is an added item to the record of non-production. Factory welfare work that does not educate the factory personnel to a point beyond the need of chaperonage is not doing its duty. The work of every welfare worker is similar to that of the physician, namely, to perform the work so well that it will soon be unnecessary. Welfare work is not a crutch for a permanent injury. It is an educational program which justifies itself only by placing its beneficiaries beyond need of it. Whatever is permanently necessary is just plain decency and justice, and should not be decked out with names which suggest that somebody deserves credit for being just a little bit more human than he was expected to be. It may sometimes seem that an advanced step is charity, but it need not be stigmatized by that word. It would better be called vision. A man sees the proper thing to do for those who have not the facilities as yet to do it for themselves, and he does it. It only means that he uses the power at his command to bring in the new era in that particular matter. The new era has been inching along for some time in this manner. This was really the way in which human rights came in. They first began as privilege. Those who could get privileges got them. But the fact that privileges could be had by one group led the way to their being had by all groups. Every inalienable right we now possess was once a class privilege. We scold a great deal about privilege these days, and it is right to do so, for what we nowadays call privilege is mostly daylight robbery. But at the same time, it is well to remember that there are instances where the privilege of the few is really a prophecy of the coming rights of the many. Humanitarianism is splendid when it is not professionalized, but it is not a good word. Suppose there comes a time when everyone will be self-sufficient, so far as the material assistance we can render each other is concerned. Where then will be the field for humanitarianism? That is, the kind of humanitarianism that really gives you the feeling of veterinarianism. There is only human helpfulness, and directly that is systematized, organized, commercialized, and professionalized, the heart of it is extinguished, and it becomes as cold and clammy thing. Human helpfulness, which is never card cataloged nor advertised, is the most helpful agency in the world today. There are more orphan children being cared for in the private homes of people who love them than in the institutions. There are more old people being sheltered among friends, without money and without price, and with no thought of either than you can find in the old people's homes. There is more aid by loans and other assistance between family and family than all the loan societies or banks are doing. That is, human society on a humane basis looks out for itself. It is a grave question how far we ought to countenance the commercialization of this instinct. We certainly ought to subject it to the severest scrutiny to find, if possible, by what interests and for what interests it is being commercialized. Above all, however, we should devote ourselves to the cultivation of the old-fashioned virtue of self-reliance in our people. Americans were formerly self-reliant. Americans in blood and spirit doubtless form the self-reliant part of our population now. But we have received large admixtures from other countries where an obsequious attitude is counted necessary before one can even receive one's rights. That was carried to America by a sufficient number of people to have its effect, especially on the officers of municipal government. Foreigners thought an alderman was a great personage and a policeman a power to be placated. It wasn't good for the alderman or the policeman to be thus exalted. Good old-fashioned American self-reliance is a much better attitude to adopt before all political powers. We need more of it in the country right now. One of the common sayings which came out of the dawn of common sense on this whole question was this: help a man to help himself. But how have we been doing it? We have been starting too far this side of the root of the matter. The way to help a man to help himself is to get the idea firmly rooted in his understanding that his help is in himself. That is the entire basis of our much boasted self-government. Only a self-reliant people can be self-governing, and if we have found the government slipping away from ourselves, we may take it as a sign that we are losing our national virtue of self-reliance. There is something tragically comic in lazily relying on a government that relies on us. And if a government ceases to rely on the people, and the people cease to rely on themselves, that is the beginning of dissolution. We may, however, think of dissolution for this nation or government. It is made of the principles that forever endure. Let every American become self-protective from coddling. Americans ought to resent coddling like a drug. Stand up and stand out. Let weakness shrivel for lack of will. We will have rights because we will simply go to work and make them, create them, and then enjoy them.